Welcome to day four of African History Month. Happy African History Month. And I want to start with the side note, and I'll be addressing this more in depth in the coming days. But I saw an interesting post by Joshua Patil, and it was about how he's boycotting Black History Month, and the traditional, the watered down version of Black History Month, which is something I've been speaking about. Like, if you notice these previous posts, I've been speaking about it. I've done posts about it in previous years. I've done I've blogged about it. And when I was inside, and for those of you who don't understand, when I was inside prison in 2004, that was when I actually came to a full realization of how ridiculous the current form of, or this watered down version of Black history was, in terms of what it focused on, picking and choosing who it chose to celebrate, starting in America. So this whole idea of African American history, if the United States of America is only a couple hundred years old, where does that leave African Americans? Yeah, our history goes way further back than that, but that's just part of that tells you something about somebody who doesn't want you to fully understand your history, fully know your history, and to fully explore how much you've contributed to civilization, how rich and how inspiring your history is, and all the lessons that you can learn from your history. And he made an interesting point about watching Star Wars from the perspective of Darth Vader. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense at all. But that's the perspective of Black history. The villain in this story, the United States government led the oppression of Africans on this continent, and they're the ones that are now saying, okay, yeah, it's like Jeff Goldblum, the Grandmaster at the end of Thor Ragnarok. Congratulations, it's been a successful revolution. I think we all deserve a pat on the back because, hey, you needed somebody to overthrow. So just give ourselves a pat on the back. Congratulations, it's a tie. That's like, as funny as that was, that's what, the U.S. government really is. That's the situation. That's the position it really is in, where it's like, yes, it's celebrating, pretending to celebrate its defeat, and while continuing to just perpetuate its oppression of people in new forms. And that is why I think that's definitely one of the reasons why truly understanding Black history is so important to the Black community. And I actually think that's also why it's important to other communities, because the refusal of other communities to see or to think that that it only applies to Black people, I don't want to hear it anymore, is damaging, because you're missing so many lessons about the nature of the enemy, of the oppressor. And as we'll get on later this month, the oppression, even if it started here, it didn't end here. It evolved and it expanded. And you got to a point where there's many more people who should realize that the lessons that we can learn from the oppression of The oppression and the crimes committed against humanity, committed against black people, have not truly ended. They've evolved. They've morphed into something else. And the people that are, perpetuating these atrocities have no qualms about expanding oppression to others. And I think there's lessons, definitely of course, there's lessons the black community learn. But I truly believe that this is something others need to be paying attention to as well. And even if they don't initially, I believe black community, we can act as ambassadors as we overcome this oppression and address it, and we can actually become an incredible force in bringing a reckoning to the status quo once and for all. And with that, I want to talk about Harriet Tubman today. Harriet Tubman, I think people hear about her, but they don't truly appreciate how strong this woman was. We talk about the Underground Railroad. She was the conductor of the Underground Railroad, without fully appreciating what that means. Because number one, I can't wait to see, properly done, the Harriet Tubman movie. Like, of all of these historical, this movie should be an epic event. I mean, just monumental. I don't even know if they're working on it. I wouldn't mind bringing something like that to fruition. But it would be a huge undertaking. And because of how powerful this woman was, how strong this woman was, and how much she did, her character is phenomenal. Just take a look at this. She was born into slavery. She was born into oppression. She was born where people were getting killed around her. She was beaten. In fact, I believe at one point she was beaten so badly, it permanently caused her permanent damage. And she managed to escape eventually from this situation. She managed to escape. She got free. That's not the end of the story. And that's just the beginning. So if you take a look at the fact that she was subjected to these horrible, atrocious conditions, the vicious beatings, and she escaped from it. And that's just the beginning of the story. Like, you got to realize how gangster this woman was. This woman was truly powerful, because she escapes. She gets free. Then she starts putting together money to go back and get others out. Like, you narrowly escape death, beatings, all kinds of horrific conditions. And your thought is, I gotta go back. I gotta get everyone else. This woman, so when they were talking about putting her on a stamp or on the dollar bill, that's, number one, that's, it's kind of, the U.S. government doing what they do, trying to, yes, we celebrate. Like, no, you're, in large part the perpetrators of this conduct. But, yeah, she didn't just go back once. She went back repeatedly. She kept going back. She kept going back, bringing people back with her. This woman is amazing. And that's not all. Because the interesting thing about the post of Patil's post that I was mentioning was he talks about just celebrating people who just, sat, prayed and sang and held hands. No, this woman was doing more than that, because she actually worked with John Brown in preparing for an armed insurrection. Unfortunately, that wasn't successful. And in fact, so if you don't know who John Brown is, John Brown was a white abolitionist who took up arms to go at slave owners. So right then and there, that's a story I think also is that needs to be told, because it doesn't mean that if you're not black that you can't, that in hearing about this story that you should be identifying with the oppressors. If you're identifying with the oppressors, that's because you choose to. You could very well choose to and empathize as well. I think most righteous, right-hearted people would say, "Hey, this is horrible," and would, but that's what he did. He was appalled at these conditions, and he says, "Listen, something's got to happen. We got to end this." And he picked up arms, and she was working with him, helping to organize this insurrection. Unfortunately, when the insurrection was supposed to, fortunately for her, unfortunately for everyone else, the insurrection was squashed. Somebody, somebody told on them. It was discovered. The plot was discovered, and she was supposed to be there, but she was delayed in getting there. It was fortunate for her and for many other people that she continued to save, that she wasn't there, because the people that were involved in this insurrection were captured and murdered. I don't say murdered because they weren't. If they're conducting an armed insurrection against a situation that is illegal, immoral, and that should not exist, they're, I don't care, give a damn what the law says. You were committing a crime against these people. They tried to stop the crime, and then you murdered these people. Point blank, period. But she escaped that, and she continued to fight, though. Her commitment remained. And even during the Civil War, she helped free more slaves. She actually acted as a spy for the Union to undermine the Confederacy and free slaves. And it's just astounding how much work she put in, how many people she saved, how many lives she affected. And that's why, she is later this month, Black Panther comes out. This woman is a real life superhero. This woman is a real life black superhero. And she needs to be celebrated as such, because her entire life was dedicated to fighting against these unjust and horrible conditions, and freeing people, making a direct impact on people's lives, of getting them out, not just talking about it, being about it. And she was willing to go to the next level to get it done. And I really would love to be a part of bringing her story to the big screen. That would be, and even if I don't, if somebody else does it, because there's, somebody else does it and they do it right, I will be first in line, buy my tickets and watch that movie day 1, day 2, day 3, because she's, like I said, Harriet Tubman is truly an example is truly a black superhero, point blank, period. A real life black superhero. Thank you for joining me for day 4 of African History Month. I'll see you tomorrow.